The gunshot echoed across the plains as Olivia Lawson clutched her twin babies closer to her chest, her heart pounding with each hoofbeat that carried her stagecoach toward the dusty horizon of Austin, Texas. It was 1875, and the promise of a new beginning was all she had left. The stagecoach rolled into Austin just as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the main street. Olivia peered through the dusty window, her eyes burning with exhaustion. 6 days of travel had left her hollow-cheeked and weary, but there was no going back to St. Louis now, not after everything that had happened. "Last stop, madam," the driver called, his voice gruff from years of dust and whiskey. Olivia adjusted her sleeping twins, a boy and a girl just 4 months old, before gathering her meager belongings. As she stepped down from the stagecoach, her boot landed in a puddle of muddy water, soaking through to her stockings. It seemed a fitting welcome to her new life. "Need a hand with those little ones?" the driver offered, already unloading her single trunk. "Thank you, but I can manage," Olivia replied, mustering what dignity she had left. She had $18 to her name, no husband, and 2 hungry mouths to feed. Pride was a luxury she could ill afford, but it was all she had left. The street bustled with activity despite the approaching nightfall. Cowboys mingled with merchants, and saloon music spilled onto the boardwalks. Olivia stood frozen, the twins beginning to stir against her chest. She needed lodging, but had no idea where to start in this unfamiliar town. "You look lost, madam." A deep voice startled her from behind. Olivia turned to face a tall man with kind eyes and a weathered face. His hat was pulled low, but she could see the gentle curve of his smile beneath a well-trimmed mustache. "I'm looking for a place to stay," she admitted. "Something affordable." The man's gaze dropped to the babies bundled against her, then to her bare ring finger. If he judged her, he hit it well. "Name's Isaac Xavier," he said, tipping his hat. "I own the ranch just outside town. Mrs. Holloway runs a boarding house 2 streets over. Decent place, fair prices." "Thank you, Mr. Xavier." Olivia shifted uncomfortably as one of the twins began to fuss. Isaac's eyes softened. "Those little ones have a powerful set of lungs. They've been remarkably patient during our journey," Olivia said, bouncing gently to soothe them. "I'm Olivia Lawson. These are Emma and Ethan." The baby boy let out a cry, his tiny fists waving in protest. "May I?" Isaac asked, holding out his arms. Hesitantly, Olivia passed Ethan to him. To her surprise, Isaac handled the baby with practiced ease, tucking him securely in the crook of his arm. "You have children of your own?" she asked. A shadow crossed his face. "Not anymore." Before she could inquire further, Emma began to cry in earnest, her wails drawing the attention of passers-by. "They're hungry," Olivia explained, embarrassed by the attention. "And I need to find that boarding house before dark." Isaac nodded, still cradling Ethan. "I'll escort you there." He whistled to a young boy loitering nearby. "Jimmy, fetch Mrs. Lawson's trunk and bring it to Mrs. Holloway's place." The boy nodded eagerly, clearly accustomed to taking orders from Isaac. As they walked down the dusty street, Olivia was acutely aware of her appearance: travel-stained dress, unkempt hair, and no wedding ring. The whispers followed them like shadows. "Don't mind them," Isaac said quietly. "Folks here love to talk, but they're good people at heart." "I'm used to whispers," she replied, her voice brittle. They reached a modest 2-story building with a neatly painted sign. "Holloway Boarding House." Mrs. Holloway was a round woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her gaze immediately fell to Olivia's bare finger, then to the baby's, one in her arms, one held by Isaac. "Mr. Xavier." She greeted him warmly before her eyes cooled as they returned to Olivia. "How may I help you?" "Mrs. Lawson needs a room," Isaac said. She's just arrived from St. Louis, Olivia supplied. Mrs. Holloway's lips pursed. I run a respectable establishment, Mr. Xavier. Olivia's cheeks burned with humiliation. She should have expected this reception. Mrs. Holloway, Isaac's voice took on a firmer edge. Mrs. Lawson is a respectable widow traveling alone with her children. I personally vouch for her character. The lie hung between them, but Olivia didn't contradict him. She wasn't a widow, she'd never been married at all, but the story would make her life easier. Mrs. Holloway's expression softened slightly. A widow, you say? Her eyes dropped again to Olivia's bare hand. I sold my ring, Olivia improvised. The journey was expensive. Isaac's eyes flicked to her for just a moment, something unreadable in their depths. Well then, Mrs. Holloway said, still dubious but unwilling to contradict Isaac Xavier. I have a room available, $5 a week, meals included. It was more than Olivia had hoped to pay, but with 2 hungry babies, regular meals were essential. Thank you. As Mrs. Holloway led them upstairs to a small but clean room, Olivia wondered how long her meager savings would last. The washroom is down the hall, Mrs. Holloway explained. Breakfast at 6 sharp, dinner at 5 in the evening. I don't tolerate late arrivals. I understand, Olivia said, taking Ethan back from Isaac as they entered the room. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway, Isaac said with a polite nod. The older woman smiled at him before departing, closing the door halfway. Once she was gone, Olivia sank onto the bed, still holding both twins. Thank you, Mr. Xavier. Your kindness to a stranger is unexpected. Isaac remained by the door. Austin can be a hard place for newcomers, especially. His eyes drifted to her bare hand again. Especially unwed mothers, Olivia finished for him, too exhausted for pretense. I'm not a widow, Mr. Xavier. I've never been married. Instead of the judgment she expected, Isaac merely nodded. I figured as much. Your ring finger doesn't have the mark of a long, worn band. Olivia looked down at her babies, now both fussing with hunger. I should feed them. Of course. Isaac turned to leave, then paused. Mrs. Holloway serves good meals, but she'll expect you to wear a wedding ring if you're to stay here as a widow. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Another expense she couldn't afford. She arrived with twin babies and no ring, Isaac said softly, almost to himself. Then louder. Then we'll get you one tomorrow. Before Olivia could protest, he was gone, his boots echoing down the hallway. The next morning, Olivia rose early, having spent a restless night. The twins had woken every few hours, unaccustomed to the strange room. She washed and dressed quickly, grateful for clean water and soap after days of travel. When she descended for breakfast, the dining room was already half full with boarders, mainly traveling salesmen, and a few single women who worked in the town's shops. Conversation halted briefly as she entered with her babies, then resumed with the unmistakable undercurrent of curiosity. Mrs. Holloway directed her to a small table in the corner. I've arranged for a basket that can hold both babies while you eat, she said, her tone slightly warmer than the previous evening. Thank you, Olivia replied, carefully settling the twins. She had just begun to eat when the front door opened and Isaac Xavier stepped inside. He removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair with touches of silver at the temples. Several boarders greeted him, suggesting he was a familiar presence. Mr. Xavier, Mrs. Holloway beamed. Will you join us for breakfast? Thank you, madam, but I'm here on business. His eyes found Olivia. Mrs. Lawson, if I might have a word. Curious glances followed as Olivia rose and joined him in the small foyer. I hope you slept well, he said, his voice low. As well as can be expected with 2 infants, she replied. Isaac smiled briefly, then reached into his pocket. As promised, he said, presenting a small gold band. "Nothing fancy, but it should serve its purpose." Olivia stared at the ring. "Mr. Xavier, I can't accept this." "You can and will," he countered. "Consider it a loan if you must." "Why are you helping me?" she asked, studying his face. He was handsome in a rugged way, she realized, perhaps in his late 30s, with lines around his eyes that spoke of both laughter and hardship. "Everyone deserves a fresh start," he said simply. "Besides, I have a proposition for you." Olivia tensed. She'd heard propositions before. Seeing her reaction, Isaac shook his head. "Not that kind. My housekeeper left 2 weeks ago to care for her ailing sister in San Antonio. I need someone to cook and keep house at the ranch. You're offering me employment, room and board for you and the twins, plus $20 a month," he said. "It's isolated, but the house is comfortable. You'd have your own quarters." It was a generous offer, far better than her dwindling options in town. Still, she hesitated. "Why would you hire a woman with 2 infants? Surely I'd be less efficient than someone without such responsibilities." "Perhaps," he conceded, "but I have my reasons." Before she could press further, one of the twins began to cry. "Think about it," Isaac said, placing the ring in her palm. "I'll return tomorrow for your answer." After he left, Olivia returned to her breakfast, the ring tucked safely in her pocket. The other boarders watched her with renewed interest, no doubt wondering about her connection to one of Austin's most prominent ranchers. Later that morning, Olivia ventured into town, the twins secured in a borrowed pram from Mrs. Holloway. Her first stop was the general store, where she needed to purchase cloth diapers and a few other necessities. The storekeeper's wife, a friendly woman named Martha, cooed over the twins while Olivia selected her items. "Such beautiful babies," Martha remarked. "They have your eyes." "Thank you," Olivia replied, mentally calculating how much she could spend. "You're new in town," Martha continued. "Staying at Holloway's, I hear." News traveled fast in Austin. "For now," Olivia said noncommittally. "I saw Isaac Xavier escorting you yesterday." Martha's eyes twinkled. "He doesn't often take such interest in newcomers." Olivia felt her cheeks warm. Mr. Xavier was simply being kind to a stranger. Martha smiled knowingly. "Well, he's a good man. Lost his wife and son to fever 5 years back. Hasn't shown interest in remarrying, despite half the eligible women in the county setting their caps for him." This explained his ease with Ethan. Olivia thought sadly. "He's offered me a position as his housekeeper," she admitted, unsure why she was confiding in this stranger. Martha's eyebrows rose. "Has he now?" "Well, the Xavier Ranch is the finest in the county. You could do worse." "I haven't accepted yet." "What's holding you back, dear? A young mother alone needs security." Olivia sighed. "I came to Austin for independence, Mrs. Call me Martha, please." "Martha." "I left St. Louis to escape being dependent on others, to make my own way." Martha's expression softened. "Independence is admirable, but there's no shame in accepting help when it's offered freely, especially when little ones are involved." As Olivia left the store, her purchases balanced precariously on the pram, she considered Martha's words. Was she being foolish to hesitate over Isaac's offer? She walked slowly down the main street, taking in the bustle of Austin. Cowboys rode past, their spurs jingling. Shopkeepers swept their boardwalks. A group of men argued politics outside the barbershop. It was a vibrant town, but not necessarily welcoming to a woman in her position. Passing the saloon, she heard raucous laughter spill onto the street as the door swung open. A man stumbled out, clearly deep in his cups despite the early hour, his bleary gaze fixed on Olivia and his lips curled in a leer. "Well, ain't you a pretty thing?" he slurred, blocking her path. "Excuse me," Olivia said firmly, trying to maneuver the pram around him. He stepped closer. What's your hurry, darling? Man gets lonely in a town like this. I said excuse me, she repeated, her heart racing. The man reached for her arm, but before he could make contact, a large hand clamped down on his shoulder. The lady asked you to move, Harlan, came Isaac's steady voice. The drunk man squinted up at Isaac, recognition slowly dawning. Xavier, didn't see you there. Evidently, Isaac replied coolly. Go sleep it off before Sheriff Taylor decides you need accommodation in his jail again. Harlan mumbled something unintelligible but shuffled away without further argument. Are you all right? Isaac asked, turning to Olivia. Yes, thank you. She checked on the twins, who remained blissfully unaware of the confrontation. Do you always appear at precisely the right moment, Mr. Xavier? A smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. Just fortunate timing. I was heading to the bank. He gestured to the building across the street. May I escort you back to the boarding house? As they walked, Isaac carried her packages, leaving her free to push the pram. Several people nodded respectfully to him, their curious gazes lingering on Olivia and the babies. I've considered your offer, she said as they approached Mrs. Holloway's, and I accept with conditions. She stopped, turning to face him. I'll work for you, but I want to be clear that this is a business arrangement only. I won't be beholden to you for more than what we agree upon. Isaac's expression remained neutral. That's understood. And when I've saved enough, the twins and I will move on. At this, a flicker of something disappointment crossed his face, but he nodded. Of course. When would you like to start? Tomorrow, if that suits you. I'll come by at 9 with the wagon. He handed her the packages. Oh, and Mrs. Lawson. Yes. You might want to start wearing that ring now. Folks are already talking. Olivia's hand went to her pocket where the gold band rested. I suppose they are. That evening, as she put the twins down for the night, Olivia slipped the ring onto her finger. It was slightly loose but would serve its purpose. She'd lived without a wedding band for so long, yet somehow this simple circle of gold felt heavier than its actual weight. The next morning, Isaac arrived promptly at 9 with a wagon. Mrs. Holloway fussed over Olivia's departure, having apparently decided that the young widow was respectable after all, especially now that she wore a wedding ring and had secured employment with Isaac Xavier. The Xavier Ranch is a fine place, Mrs. Holloway assured her as Isaac loaded Olivia's trunk. You're fortunate to have found such a position. Yes, Olivia agreed, securing the twins in a nest of blankets on the wagon seat. Thank you for your hospitality. The journey to the ranch took nearly 2 hours. As they left Austin behind, the landscape opened up into rolling hills dotted with oak trees and vast stretches of grazing land. Cattle bearing the Xavier brand, a stylized X with a horizontal line through it, grazed peacefully. How much land do you own? Olivia asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had fallen between them. About 5,000 acres, Isaac replied. My father started with just 500, built it up over 30 years. I've added to it since his passing. It's beautiful country. Isaac's face softened as he gazed across his land. It gets in your blood. I tried living in the city once after college. Couldn't breathe right until I came back. You attended college. Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. He chuckled. Don't let the hat and boots fool you, Mrs. Lawson. I studied agriculture and business at a university in Pennsylvania. My father insisted. A wise man, he was. Isaac glanced at her. What about your family? Olivia looked down at the twins. My parents died when I was 16. I have no siblings. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. They crested a hill, and the Xavier ranch house came into view. Olivia gasped despite herself. It was far grander than she had imagined, a large 2-story home with a wide veranda wrapped around 3 sides. Behind it stood a barn, bunkhouse, and various outbuildings. Everything was well maintained, the white paint gleaming in the sun. "You live here alone?" she asked. "In the main house, yes. The ranch hands stay in the bunkhouse. My foreman, Miguel, has a cabin near the south pasture with his wife and children." As they pulled up to the house, a ranch hand hurried forward to take the horses. Isaac helped Olivia down, then carefully lifted the twins from their nest. "I'll show you to your quarters first, so you can get settled," he said. The interior of the house was as impressive as the exterior: polished wood floors, handsome furniture, and surprisingly tasteful decor for a bachelor's residence. Isaac led her to a wing off the main hallway. "These will be your rooms," he said, opening a door to reveal a spacious bedroom with an adjoining sitting room. "The previous housekeeper used this area. There's a small kitchen through that door where you can prepare the twins' meals if needed." Olivia walked inside, taking in the comfortable furnishings and large windows that flooded the rooms with light. A cradle sat in the corner, new by the looks of it. "I had it made in town," Isaac explained, following her gaze. "Figured the little ones would need a proper place to sleep." Emotion tightened Olivia's throat. "That's very thoughtful." "There's a bell system to summon you when needed," he continued, indicating a small bell mounted on the wall. "Your duties would include overseeing meals, managing the household accounts, and general upkeep of the main house. I have a woman from town who comes in twice a week for the heavy cleaning." "I see." It seemed manageable, even with the twins. "I took the liberty of having Rosa, Miguel's wife, prepare lunch. She'll help you get oriented to the kitchen." He shifted awkwardly. "I'll leave you to get settled. Join me in the dining room when you're ready." After he left, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly overwhelmed. Everything was happening so quickly. Just 3 days ago, she'd been on a dusty stagecoach with no clear plan beyond escaping St. Louis. Now she was installed in a grand ranch house with employment and a borrowed wedding ring. She looked down at the gold band on her finger. The lie bothered her more than she cared to admit. Isaac Xavier seemed like an honorable man, and she was repaying his kindness with deception. But what choice did she have? An unwed mother with twins had few options in a town like Austin. The babies began to fuss, reminding her of immediate concerns. After feeding and changing them, she washed her face and smoothed her hair before venturing out to find the dining room. Isaac was reviewing papers at the large oak table when she entered. He stood immediately. "The twins are sleeping," she explained. "I hope that's all right." "Of course. I had Rosa prepare a cold lunch since I wasn't sure when you'd be ready." They ate in companionable silence for a while: cold chicken, fresh bread, and a salad of greens that must have come from a kitchen garden. "May I ask what brought you to Austin?" Isaac finally inquired. "It's a long way from St. Louis." Olivia set down her fork. "A fresh start, as you said." "Most people seeking fresh starts go to bigger cities, not frontier towns." She met his gaze steadily. "The bigger the city, the easier it is to be found." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You're running from someone." "Not exactly," she sighed. "The twins' father is a prominent man in St. Louis. When he discovered I was with child, he offered to take care of the problem. When I refused, he made it clear that acknowledging his children would never be an option." "So you left." "I stayed until they were born. I thought perhaps seeing them might." She shook her head. "It didn't matter. He threatened to have them taken from me, to claim I was unfit. He has influence, money." "And you have no one to protect you," Isaac finished. "I protect myself, Mr. Xavier, and my children." Her voice was steel. "I didn't come to Austin looking for a rescuer." "Isaac," he said, "pardon. If we're to share a house, you might as well use my given name." "Isaac," she repeated, the name feeling foreign on her tongue. "Then you must call me Olivia. A smile ghosted across his lips. Olivia, then. The days at the Xavier Ranch quickly fell into a rhythm. Olivia rose early to tend to the twins before preparing breakfast. Isaac was always up before dawn, often returning from an early ride around the property just as she was setting the table. They would eat together, discussing the day's plans. Isaac would spend most daylight hours out on the ranch, returning for lunch when he could, but always for dinner. After the evening meal, they often sat in the study, Isaac working on ranch accounts while Olivia sewed or read from his extensive library. It was a strangely domestic arrangement for two people who were ostensibly employer and employee. Olivia found herself looking forward to their evening conversations, during which Isaac would share stories of his childhood on the ranch or ask thoughtful questions about her own interests and experiences. She learned he was 38, educated but unpretentious, respected by his workers and surprisingly well-read. He never pressed her about her past or the twins' father, accepting the pieces of information she chose to share. 2 weeks into her stay, a violent thunderstorm rolled in just after dinner. The twins, now almost 5 months old, were frightened by the thunder, their wails competing with the howling wind. "They won't settle," Olivia said apologetically, bouncing Ethan in her arms while Emma continued to cry in the cradle. "May I?" Isaac asked, reaching for Ethan. She handed him over, then lifted Emma. Together they paced the study, each soothing a distressed baby. "My son used to fear storms too," Isaac said quietly, his voice barely audible over the rain battering the windows. "Sarah and I would walk him around the house like this, until he fell asleep." It was the first time he had voluntarily mentioned his deceased wife and child. Olivia's heart ached for him. "How old was he?" she asked gently. "Just turned 3 when the fever took him." Sarah followed a week later. His voice was level, but his eyes held old pain. "Sometimes I think it would have been easier if I'd gone too." "I'm glad you didn't," Olivia said, the words escaping before she could consider them. Isaac looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "As am I most days." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Then Emma hiccuped and settled against Olivia's shoulder, breaking the spell. "She's asleep," Olivia whispered. Ethan had also dozed off, his head nestled in the crook of Isaac's arm. Carefully they placed the babies in the cradle. "You're good with them," Olivia observed as they stepped back. "They make it easy," he replied. "They're good babies." "Not always," she laughed softly. "You should hear them at 3 in the morning." "I have," he admitted. "My room is just down the hall. They have impressive lungs." "I'm sorry if they've disturbed you. Don't be." He hesitated, then added, "It's nice, having a family in the house again." Family. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Olivia found herself wondering what it would be like if this arrangement weren't temporary, if the ring on her finger weren't just for show. The thought startled her. She'd sworn off men after her experience in St. Louis, determined to raise her children alone rather than risk her heart again. "I should turn in," she said, suddenly needing distance. "It's been a long day, of course." Isaac stepped back, his expression unreadable. "Good night, Olivia." "Good night." In her room, listening to the storm rage outside, Olivia chided herself for her foolish thoughts. Isaac Xavier was her employer, nothing more. That he was kind to her children and treated her with respect didn't mean his intentions were romantic. He was still grieving his family, that much was clear from the pain that lingered in his eyes when he spoke of them. Besides, what could she offer a man like him? She had no money, no family connections, 2 illegitimate children, and a past she was running from. She'd be a liability, not a partner. Yet as she drifted to sleep, she couldn't help remembering the way he'd looked at her across the sleeping twins, as if seeing something valuable and worthy. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the storm having blown itself out overnight. Olivia was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Miguel's wife, Rosa, arrived with fresh eggs. "Buenos dias, Señora Lawson," Rosa greeted her warmly. In the weeks since Olivia's arrival, the two women had developed a friendly rapport, with Rosa helping Olivia learn her way around the large kitchen. "Good morning, Rosa. Thank you for the eggs." Rosa beamed at the twins, who were sitting in a wooden contraption. Isaac had built a chair with two seats side by side, secured by a leather strap. "They grow so fast," Rosa remarked. "My youngest is already 5. I miss having babies in the house." "You have 4 children?" Olivia asked, cracking eggs into a bowl. "She, 4 boys. Miguel wants a girl, but I tell him, God gives what God gives." Her eyes twinkled. "Perhaps you will have more someday. Give these little ones brothers or sisters." Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "I don't think so." Rosa's expression turned knowing. "Señor Xavier watches you, not like a boss watches a housekeeper." "Rosa, please, he is a good man," Rosa continued, undeterred. "Loyal, honorable, he would make a good father to your babies." "That's not why I'm here," Olivia protested. "I work for Mr. Xavier, nothing more." Rosa just smiled. "As you say, Señora, but a house needs a family, and Señor Xavier has been alone too long." Before Olivia could respond, the back door opened, and Isaac himself entered, bringing with him the smell of morning air and horses. "Ladies," he greeted them, removing his hat. "Something smells delicious." "Just breakfast," Olivia replied, suddenly flustered under Rosa's knowing gaze. "Rosa, Miguel mentioned the south fence needs reinforcing before we move the new cattle through," Isaac said. "Would you remind him I'll be out that way this afternoon?" Señor Xavier. With a last meaningful glance at Olivia, Rosa departed. Isaac washed his hands at the basin, then turned to the twins. "And how are my little deputies this morning?" Ethan babbled excitedly, while Emma regarded him solemnly before breaking into a toothless grin. "They've been fed and changed," Olivia reported, trying to reclaim her professional demeanor. "Breakfast will be ready in 5 minutes. No rush." Isaac crouched before the babies, letting Ethan grasp his finger. "I'm heading into town after breakfast. Is there anything you need?" Olivia hesitated. "Actually, if you wouldn't mind, I need to post a letter." It was the 3rd letter she'd written to her former employer in St. Louis, Mrs. Hargrove, the only person who knew her whereabouts. The older woman had promised to alert Olivia if anyone came asking questions about her, of course. Isaac's eyes lingered on her face. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, just keeping in touch with a friend," he nodded, not pressing further. "I thought perhaps you and the twins might like to come with me. It's a fine day for a drive, and you haven't left the ranch since you arrived." The invitation surprised her. "I wouldn't want to be in the way." "You wouldn't be," he smiled. "Besides, it would do the little ones good to see something besides these 4 walls." The idea was tempting. Olivia had been cooped up with the babies, and a trip to town, even one as small as Austin, would be a welcome change. "I'll need to pack a bag for the twins," she said, making up her mind. "They need feeding every few hours. We can take the covered wagon. There's room for all their necessities." An hour later, they were on the road to Austin, the twins secured in a makeshift nest of blankets between them on the wagon seat. Olivia had changed into her best dress, a blue calico that brought out her eyes, and had even taken extra care with her hair, pinning it up neatly beneath her bonnet. The day was indeed beautiful, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers and sun-warmed grass. As they drove, Isaac pointed out features of the landscape, naming the wildflowers that dotted the roadside and sharing stories about the history of the land. My grandfather came here in '36, right after Texas won its independence, he explained. He fought with Sam Houston against Santa Anna. You have deep roots here, Olivia observed. This land is in my blood, Isaac agreed. I can't imagine living anywhere else. They lapsed into companionable silence until the outskirts of Austin came into view. I need to stop at the bank and the mercantile, Isaac said. Would you like me to drop you somewhere specific, or would you prefer to come along? I'd like to visit the general store, Olivia replied. Martha was kind to me and I'd like to thank her. Isaac's errands took longer than expected. By midday, they found themselves having lunch at a small restaurant on the main street. Olivia was acutely conscious of the curious glances directed their way as Isaac held Emma while she fed Ethan. People are staring, she murmured. Let them, Isaac replied, unconcerned. Austin loves its gossip. What are they saying, I wonder? Probably that I've finally come to my senses and taken a wife, he said lightly. Or perhaps they're simply admiring these handsome children. The casual mention of marriage made Olivia's pulse quicken, though she knew he was speaking in jest. Still, the image it conjured of truly being Isaac's wife, of the twins having a father who cared for them, was surprisingly appealing. After lunch, they visited the general store where Martha greeted them warmly. Mrs. Lawson, and the little ones, my goodness, they've grown. Her shrewd eyes took in Isaac's presence and the easy way he held Emma. Mr. Xavier, always a pleasure. Likewise, Martha, Isaac replied. I'm just escorting Mrs. Lawson on some errands. Of course, Martha's smile turned knowing. How fortunate for her to have such a devoted employer. Olivia felt her cheeks flush. We needed a few things for the babies, she explained, hoping to divert Martha's evident matchmaking thoughts. As she selected items, Martha moved closer, lowering her voice. He looks at you like a man dying of thirst looks at water, she murmured. Just so you know. Before Olivia could formulate a response, the shop door burst open and a man in a dusty suit strode in. He scanned the store, his gaze landing on Olivia with sudden recognition. Olivia Lawson, he asked, his voice carrying across the small space. Olivia froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd never seen this man before, but something in his manner triggered alarm bells. Yes. She replied cautiously. The man approached, removing his hat. James Pinkerton, madam, I've been looking for you. A Pinkerton detective. Olivia's knees threatened to buckle. They'd found her. Isaac stepped forward, Emma still in his arms. What business do you have with Mrs. Lawson? His voice was polite, but carried an unmistakable note of protectiveness. Pinkerton eyed Isaac, taking in his clearly prosperous appearance and the way he held the baby with familiar ease. I'm seeking information regarding the whereabouts of 2 children, he said. I believe Mrs. Lawson may be able to assist me. My children are right here, Olivia said, fighting to keep her voice steady. As you can see, they're well cared for. Indeed. Pinkerton's gaze shifted between the twins. May I ask, are you married, Mrs. Lawson? Before Olivia could respond, Isaac stepped closer to her side. She's my wife, he said firmly. These are our children. The lie hung in the air, stunning Olivia into silence. Pinkerton frowned. I have information that Mrs. Lawson arrived in Austin approximately 3 weeks ago, unmarried and alone with twin infants. Then your information is incorrect, Isaac replied smoothly. Olivia and I have been married for over a year. She recently returned from visiting family in St. Louis. Martha, bless her, jumped in without missing a beat. That's right. Mr. Xavier was like a bear with a sore paw the whole time his wife was away. We were all relieved when she returned. Pinkerton looked unconvinced. I was hired to locate 2 children born to an unmarried woman named Olivia Lawson, formerly of St. Louis. The description matches. "An unfortunate coincidence of names, perhaps," Isaac suggested. "My wife has never been unmarried with children." Olivia found her voice at last, drawing strength from Isaac's solid presence beside her. "Who hired you, Mr. Pinkerton?" The detective hesitated. "I'm not at liberty to say." "Richard Blackwood," Olivia guessed, watching the man's face for confirmation. "He's looking for his illegitimate children, isn't he? After denying their existence and threatening to take them from their mother." Pinkerton's expression revealed nothing, but his silence was answer enough. "I suggest you inform your client that his search is misguided," Isaac said, his voice hardening. "The Lawson woman he seeks is clearly not my wife." The standoff continued for several tense moments before Pinkerton finally nodded. "I'll report what I've found. Good day to you." After he left, Olivia's legs finally gave out. She sank onto a nearby chair, trembling. "Oh my," Martha breathed. "That was quite something." Isaac handed Emma to Martha, then knelt before Olivia. "Are you all right?" She shook her head, tears threatening. "He found me. How did he find me?" "He hasn't found anything," Isaac assured her, taking her hands in his. "As far as he knows, you're a respectable married woman with a husband who would move heaven and earth to protect you and your children." His words, spoken with such conviction, broke through her panic. "Why did you say that?" "That I was your wife." It seemed the simplest solution. His thumbs traced circles on the backs of her hands. "I'm sorry if I overstepped." "No," she whispered. "Thank you." Martha cleared her throat. "I'll just go check on something in the back," she said, tactfully retreating with Emma. Alone with Isaac, Olivia felt the full weight of what had just happened. "He'll be back," she said. "Blackwood won't give up that easily. Then we'll be ready." Isaac's expression turned thoughtful. "Although there is a more permanent solution." "What's that?" "We could make it true." Olivia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "Make what true?" "That you're my wife." His gaze was steady, unflinching. "That we're a family." "Isaac," she breathed, shock rendering her nearly speechless. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." He took a deep breath. "I know this is sudden, and I'm doing this all wrong. I should court you properly, give you time. But I've known since the moment I saw you with those babies that you were meant to be in my life." "You don't even know me," Olivia protested weakly. "I know enough," he countered. "I know you're brave and determined. I know you love your children fiercely. I know you make my house feel like a home again." He paused. "And I know I'm falling in love with you." Olivia's heart thundered in her ears. "This is madness." "Perhaps." A smile touched his lips. "But sometimes madness is exactly what's called for." "You would take on another man's children." "I already have," he pointed out. "They feel like mine already. I want to be their father in every way that matters." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Isaac urged gently. "Say you'll marry me, not just for protection, though that's part of it, but because I think we could build something good together, something real." The enormity of the moment overwhelmed her. 3 weeks ago he had been a stranger. Now he was offering her everything she had never dared to hope for: security, protection, a father for her children, and possibly love. "I need time," she whispered. "Of course." He squeezed her hands once more before releasing them. "Take all the time you need. My offer stands." Martha returned with Emma, her expression curious but tactfully silent about what might have transpired in her absence. The journey back to the ranch was quiet, both Olivia and Isaac lost in their own thoughts. The twins, sensing the tension, fussed more than usual, requiring frequent stops for feeding and changing. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the land. Isaac helped Olivia down from the wagon, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. "I'll have one of the hands bring your purchases to the house," he said. "Why don't you take the little ones inside? They've had a long day." Grateful for the reprieve, Olivia carried the twins to their quarters. Once they were fed and settled in their cradle, she sat on her bed, her mind whirling with the day's events. Isaac had asked her to marry him. Not as a business arrangement, not out of pity, but because he was falling in love with her. The realization sent warmth flooding through her. But was it wise? She'd known him barely 3 weeks. Her last relationship had ended in betrayal and flight. Could she trust her judgment now? Yet Isaac was nothing like Richard Blackwood. Where Richard had been charming but ultimately selfish, Isaac was steadfast and honorable. Where Richard had rejected his own children, Isaac had embraced them without hesitation. And then there was the practical consideration. Marriage to Isaac would provide permanent protection from Richard's threats. No court would remove children from a stable home with 2 parents, especially when one was as respected as Isaac Xavier. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Isaac standing there, his expression uncertain. "I wanted to check on you," he said, "after everything today." "We're fine," Olivia assured him. "The twins are asleep. And you, processing." She opened the door wider, inviting him in. They sat in the small sitting room adjacent to her bedroom, close enough to hear the twins if they woke. "I owe you an explanation," Olivia began, "about Richard Blackwood." "You don't owe me anything," Isaac said quietly. "I want you to know." She took a deep breath. "I was a governess for the Hargrove family in St. Louis. Richard was Mrs. Hargrove's brother. He was charming, attentive. He made me feel special." She looked down at her hands. "I was naive. When I discovered I was with child twins, no less I thought surely he would do right by me." "But he didn't," Isaac guessed. Olivia laughed bitterly. "He offered me money to make the problem go away. When I refused, he threatened to ruin me, to claim I was mentally unstable and unfit to be a mother. He has connections, influence. I believed him. So you ran. Mrs. Hargrove helped me. She gave me money, helped me plan my escape. She's been my only contact with St. Louis." Olivia shook her head. "I never thought he'd actually come looking for the babies. He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with them." "Men like that hate losing control," Isaac observed. "Your defiance wounded his pride. And now he's found me." Fear crept back into her voice. "He's found a married woman whose husband won't let him within a mile of his family," Isaac corrected. "Even if Pinkerton reports his suspicions, what can Blackwood do? You're established here with a husband, a home. But I'm not actually married to you. You could be." His voice was soft but certain. "My offer stands, Olivia. I meant every word." She studied his face, the earnest set of his jaw, the warmth in his eyes. "This is so fast." "Sometimes you just know." He reached for her hand. "I've been alone for 5 years. I never thought I'd want another family after losing Sarah and Jacob. Then you arrived with those babies, and suddenly my house felt alive again. You brought light back into my life." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Not of you, but of trusting my own judgment again." "Trust your instincts," Isaac urged. "What are they telling you?" She considered the question, searching her heart. Despite her fears, there was a certainty growing within her, a sense that this was right, that Isaac was someone she could build a life with. "They're telling me to be brave," she whispered. "To take a chance on happiness." Hope bloomed in Isaac's eyes. "Is that a yes?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Yes," she said. "I'll marry you, Isaac Xavier." His smile was radiant. He leaned forward, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. "May I?" he murmured. She nodded, and his lips met hers in a gentle kiss that held promise and tenderness. When they parted, Olivia felt as though something fundamental had shifted within her, fear giving way to hope, uncertainty to possibility. "When?" she asked. As soon as possible, Isaac replied. Next Sunday. The Reverend comes to town every other week. So soon. The sooner we're legally married, the safer you and the twins will be, he pointed out. Besides, why wait when we're certain? His confidence was infectious. Next Sunday, then, Olivia agreed. The week leading up to the wedding passed in a whirlwind. News of their engagement spread quickly through the ranch and into Austin. Rosa was delighted, immediately offering to help with preparations. Martha sent a beautiful length of cream-colored silk for a wedding dress, and the ranch hands constructed an arbor where the ceremony would take place. Isaac insisted on doing things properly, moving temporarily to the bunkhouse so they wouldn't be living under the same roof until after the wedding. Each evening, he would come to the house for dinner, sometimes bringing wildflowers or small gifts for the twins. They talked for hours, sharing their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Olivia learned about Isaac's childhood on the ranch, his time at university, his deep love for his late wife and son. In turn, she told him about growing up in Cincinnati, losing her parents to influenza, making her way as a governess in various households, until landing with the Hargroves in St. Louis. The more they shared, the more certain Olivia became that this sudden marriage was right. Isaac was steady, honorable, and genuinely affectionate toward her children, and her own feelings for him deepened with each passing day, evolving from gratitude to genuine affection to something that felt remarkably like love. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. Rosa arrived early to help Olivia dress and style her hair, bringing with her a crown of wildflowers. For the bride, she said, placing it carefully on Olivia's pinned-up curls. Olivia studied her reflection in the mirror. The cream silk dress complemented her fair skin, and the wildflowers added a touch of natural beauty. She looked happy, radiant even. "Senor Isaac is a lucky man," Rosa declared, adjusting the drape of the dress. "I'm the lucky one," Olivia replied softly. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Beneath the flower-covered arbor, with the Texas landscape stretching behind them, Olivia and Isaac exchanged vows before the traveling reverend, their friends from the ranch, and a surprising number of well-wishers from Austin. The twins, dressed in new outfits sewn by Olivia, were held by Martha and Rosa during the ceremony. When the reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac kissed Olivia with such tenderness that tears sprang to her eyes. The celebration afterward was joyful, a feast prepared by Rosa and the ranch cook, music from a fiddle player among the ranch hands, and dancing that continued well into the evening. As the sun began to set, Isaac led Olivia away from the festivities to a quiet spot overlooking the ranch. "Happy?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "Very," she replied, leaning into him. "I never imagined this would be my life." Having second thoughts, there was a hint of anxiety in his voice. Olivia turned to face him. "Not a single one," she assured him. "I'm exactly where I want to be." Relief washed over his features. "Good, because I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Later that night, after the guests had departed, and the twins were settled in the nursery Isaac had prepared adjacent to the master bedroom, husband and wife were finally alone. There was awkwardness at first, both nervous, despite their certainty in each other. But Isaac was patient and gentle, and their coming together was a tender affirmation of the commitment they had made. Afterward, lying in his arms, Olivia marveled at how completely her life had changed in just 1 month. From desperate flight to unexpected happiness, from alone to cherished. "What are you thinking?" Isaac murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "That sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to exactly where we're meant to be," she replied. He smiled against her hair. "Welcome home, Mrs. Xavier. The months that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. Isaac proved to be an attentive husband and a devoted father to the twins, who thrived under his care. By their first birthday, both were calling him Papa, a development that brought tears to his eyes the first time he heard it. True to his word, Isaac had filed adoption papers, legally making the twins his own children. The paperwork, accompanied by their marriage certificate, was sent to the Pinkerton office with a terse note indicating that any further inquiries regarding Olivia or the children would be met with legal action. They never heard from Detective Pinkerton or Richard Blackwood again. Life on the ranch settled into a pleasant rhythm. Olivia continued to oversee the household, but now as mistress rather than housekeeper. She took an interest in the ranch operations as well, learning about cattle breeding and land management from Isaac. To her surprise, she had a natural aptitude for business, and Isaac increasingly sought her counsel on ranch decisions. The twins grew sturdy and curious, exploring the ranch under the watchful eyes of their parents and the indulgent ranch hands, who had become like extended family. On a warm evening in late spring, a year after their wedding, Olivia found Isaac on the veranda watching the sunset. She joined him, settling into the comfortable silence they often shared. "I received a letter from Mrs. Hargrove today," she said eventually. Isaac turned to her, one eyebrow raised. "Good news, I hope." "Very good." Olivia smiled. "Richard Blackwood has married a Boston socialite and moved east. He's unlikely to trouble us again." "That is good news indeed." Isaac squeezed her hand. "Though I never doubted our ability to handle him if necessary." "I know." She leaned against him. "It's just nice to close that chapter completely." They watched as the last rays of sunlight painted the landscape in gold and crimson. In the distance, cattle grazed peacefully, and closer to the house, the twins could be heard laughing as Rosa's youngest son entertained them. "I have news as well," Olivia said after a moment, her voice soft with contained excitement. Isaac looked at her questioningly. "I visited Dr. Morgan in town yesterday." She took a deep breath. "We're going to have a baby." Joy bloomed across Isaac's face. "Truly," Olivia nodded, laughing as he swept her into a tight embrace. "Due in November, he thinks." "A baby," Isaac marveled, his hand coming to rest gently on her still flat abdomen. "The twins will be excited to be big brother and sister." "I hope so." She covered his hand with hers. "Are you happy?" deliriously. He kissed her softly. "You've given me more than I ever dreamed possible, Olivia. A second chance at love, a family, and now another child to cherish." As twilight deepened around them, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had arrived in Austin desperate and alone, with twin babies and no ring. She'd found not just safety, but a love she hadn't known was possible. "What are you thinking?" Isaac asked, echoing his question from their wedding night. Olivia smiled, remembering the day they met. "I'm thinking about rings," she said, twisting the gold band on her finger no longer borrowed, but hers in truth. "And how sometimes the smallest circles can contain the largest blessings." Isaac's answering smile held all the love and promise she could ever want. "Then we'll count our blessings," he said, drawing her close as the stars began to appear in the Texas sky. "Every single one." 7 months later, as the first snow of winter dusted the Texas landscape, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Samuel, after Isaac's father, and the Xavier family was complete: a mother, a father, twin toddlers who adored their baby brother, and a love that had begun with a chance meeting and a promise of a ring. Years passed, and the ranch prospered under their joint stewardship. The twins grew into confident young adults, Emma with her mother's determination and Ethan with his adoptive father's steady temperament. Samuel took after them both, combining Olivia's quick mind with Isaac's love of the land. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac presented Olivia with a new ring of diamonds set in gold, far grander than the simple band she had worn since their wedding day. "For the woman who made my house a home again," he said, sliding it onto her finger alongside her wedding band. Olivia looked at the sparkling stone, then up at the man she had come to love with every fiber of her being. "I arrived with twin babies and no ring," she said softly, "and you gave me a life beyond anything I could have imagined." "No," Isaac corrected, drawing her close. "We built it together, one day at a time." And as they stood on the veranda of the home they shared, watching their children play in the yard below, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the desperate journey that had brought her to Austin had been, in fact, the first step on the road exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of a man who had promised her a ring and had given her so much more.